Final Fantasy XIV's expansion Dawntrail came out about a month ago, and reception has been mixed to say the least. I'm just going to go out and say, before I start this video, that it will contain heavy spoilers for all of Dawntrail and its MSQ, so please click off now if you want to avoid spoilers. Okay, so Dawntrail is a story that not only people are split on, but the story itself is very split. Coming from Endwalker, we knew that Dawntrail is going to be a new story that sets the foundation for what's to come. I'll come out and say that I'm one of the people who love Dawntrail, and especially the first half, which I think is pretty rare. That isn't to say that I didn't like the second half of Dawntrail, because I did, and I like Dawntrail overall as a whole. But I went back and I rewatched the story, and I tried to look at it from different people's point of view, and I understand why some people might not have liked this expansion. One of the things that has split people on this expansion, I think, is the different expectations they had going into it, as well as the reception of a certain character, which I will get into later. Going into Dawntrail, I wasn't looking for a story with a lot of high stakes. I wanted my Warrior of Light to kind of have a break, and I was fine with them taking to the sidelines. However, I think it's completely understandable for people who don't like that aspect of Dawntrail and still wanted their character to be a very main focus. But the focus of this expansion is most definitely not on the Warrior of Light. It is on Wuk-Lamat. Hater or lover, you can't deny that this story is pretty much Wuk-Lamat's story, as much as anyone else's. I'll go out and say that I liked Wuk-Lamat personally, but not everyone did, and if you didn't, this story is probably really rough for you. I went back and I looked at the story, and I didn't even realize just how much screen time Wuk-Lamat gets. It's a ridiculous amount, to be honest, and if you didn't like her, I feel bad for you. But anyways, the first half of Dawntrail was very focused on the Rite of Secession, this lower stakes sort of experience that we got to basically guide Wuk-Lamat on her journey to becoming the Dawn Servant. I liked this arc personally. I actually liked it more than the second half because not only did I really love the zones and just like theming of it, but I was sort of looking at this expansion, as a vacation for our Warrior of Light. So having this low stakes journey was completely fine for me. During this first half, we see this importance of culture and learning culture, and we get to watch Wuk-Lamat kind of go through her journey of development to becoming a better leader. While I liked this journey for her, I understand that a lot of people found that it was rushed, and to be honest, I do think that's a correct assumption. See, Wuk-Lamat goes from being very weak and getting kidnapped and going through all of this stuff to being able to defeat Bakul Jaja and a bunch of hired thugs, and then later on in the story she's just really, really powerful and important, and it doesn't feel like she quite earned that spot. But regardless, this is how the first half of the story plays out, and we get to the scene where Wuk-Lamat becomes the Dawn Servant. There's this song that plays that I think was kind of badly timed for this fake out ending, and I understand that a lot of people were kind of thrown off by it. I hate to throw the word in, but it did feel a little bit cringe. However, personally, I still really liked this first arc, so I was happy with how it was going so far, and I was interested to see how the second arc would come into play. Now, the second arc is what really split Dawntrail. We have this complete shift in the tone as well as the theme of Dawntrail as we get into Shaloni, into Solution 9, and then the last zone. I think that when I say Dawntrail is not for everyone, I think it's because it tried to appeal in such drastically different ways. Once we get to this second half of the story, it just feels so strange and different, and so whoever was looking forward to some of the other stuff, when they get here, it's a lot, to be honest. I actually had a kind of negative reaction when I first got to the second half because of just how different it felt, and just this thematic clash between Heritage Found and the zones we had prior. Now, up to this point, Wuk-Lamat was a very major focus. There's no doubt that she was taking up a lot of screen time, so I wasn't expecting her to continue to do that into this next arc, but I didn't have a problem with it when they did because I liked her and I kind of understood that this is more her story than ours. However, if you didn't like her, this just ruined the second arc for a lot of people. she just continued to steal the screen time, and looking back on it, this was really, really rough, because there's a lot of other characters in this expansion who deserve to get a bit more screen time and have their story fleshed out more, and Wuklamot kind of steals the spotlight here. I found it especially rough for the Kryle fans, including myself, because I don't think Kryle really got to, you know, play a part in this story until the very end, and that sucks because she was kind of advertised as one of the new main characters going forward. Before I get into more about the second half of the story, I want to talk about one of the characters that a lot of people have a mixed reception on, which is Zorolja, who's sort of our second main villain other than Speen. And he has this very complex set of motivations, and they don't really show it well enough. We have so many great villains in Final Fantasy, and we can see their motives clearly. We know their backstory, like Hermes, Emmett Selk, less La Habrea. But we have sort of a backstory for them. And Zorolja, we know he has some issues, but they don't show them to us. They don't give us more of this conflict he has with his father and all the expectations put on him. And so it really dampens his character as a whole for people, because they didn't really get to understand his motives and why he did what he did. Okay, moving on from that, let's talk about Alexandria, Speen, Heritage Found, all of this stuff that happens in the second latter half of the expansion. It is a complete shift from this beautiful tropical sort of theme we have going on to this like very high technology, almost grim in some ways setting with the super cyberpunk city. I like it looking back on it, and I understand why a lot of people like this half better than the other half of the story, but it's definitely just very grating to get here from what we had before. And we have this shift from the focus of the story being on the Rite of Secession to the conflict with Zorolja and then Speen. This second half has such a great emphasis on Speen and her issues with the Endless and trying to sustain them, and how she needs to get ether and souls from other shards and worlds. So we have this conflict, we have this sort of moral gray area going on, and then we try to connect that to what we learned about in the Rite of Secession, which is culture and its importance. There's this weird thematic clash again, where up to this point we've been learning about the different cultures in Tuliolol and how to respect them and how they are important. And then we learned the culture of the Alexandrians and the Endless and their beliefs on souls. I didn't love how they handled this, because our main characters sort of don't have as much of a say in how they feel about the pretty gross practice of using souls like they're just energy. Wuklamot just kind of has this like, maybe you guys shouldn't do this, maybe you should stop doing this, and Speen is just like, no, and we kind of just move on from that. And the only other Scion who has like a pretty negative reaction towards this is Alize, who's like, this is just wrong, this is like desecrating nature, this is something that should not be done. I think this is something that we can explore in future patches, so I don't want it to hinder my opinion on the main story too much, and I think it's already something that they're kind of looking into in the Raid series, so I won't say anything else about that. But we get to the end of the story, and we confront Speen in living memory, and we have this moment where she identifies the Warrior of Light as the most powerful one there, and the one she needs to defeat. Which obviously makes sense and is totally reasonable, because the Warrior of Light is quite powerful. And we have this boss fight, we have this moment going on, and then Wuklamot comes to steal the spotlight. Up to this point, if you don't like Wuklamot, at this point you are probably screaming. And I think it's a reasonable reaction. We had this weak character who was coming into being a leader, and then now she's here helping us defeat the boss in a spot that doesn't really feel like she earned it too much. I say this coming from a standpoint where I want to look at everyone's point of view. I liked Wuklamot, I liked her story, I liked how she developed, but I can understand how she definitely got way more screen time than was probably necessary, and at this point it just doesn't really feel like she earned her spot in the finale. So we have this conflict of interest between what people wanted in Dawntrail and why it's not for everyone. Some people wanted a story where the Warrior of Light was the main focus, and that's not the story we got. We are definitely sidelined here as more of a mentor role, and while I liked it, I understand why people didn't. And our story takes place in this tropical, really like culturally diverse setting, and then it goes to this high-tech sort of cyberpunk setting, and again, it splits people because some people like one more than the other. Dawntrail is this interesting expansion that takes two different themes and sort of shoves them together, and for some people that's a complete package and they loved it and Dawntrail was made for them, and for other people it's just too split, there's too much focus on things that they didn't like, and it's completely reasonable. I think one thing we can all agree on though is that Aaronville had an amazing story in this expansion, and I think we want to see more of him in the future. There is one other thing I wanted to touch on before I end this video, and that's the idea of toxic positivity. I definitely think defending a game when it does something wrong just because it's something that you love isn't a good thing, but I don't think anyone who is praising Dawntrail is contributing to toxic positivity in any way. You are fully allowed to like this expansion, and there's nothing wrong with defending it and liking it for what it is. Just let people have an opinion, you know? Some people are allowed to not like it, and that's completely fine because, as I said, this expansion was not for everyone. But what did you think? I'm interested to hear people's opinions. Please keep it civil, but I'd love to hear some comments. This is the first video I'm making of many that I want to make on Dawntrail, so please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I am a new YouTuber and I want to make a lot more MMO content as well as content on other story-based games, so please like, subscribe, and look forward to that. This has been a big project that I wanted to make because I just had so many thoughts on Dawntrail and its story, so I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and as a side note, I want to apologize for any audio quality issues. I'm still getting my setup together for making videos, and I wanted to get this one out quickly just so that I had a video on the channel. Thanks again.